year, guys. I made a lot of changes at this podcast last year when the new logos came out. Now we're on a new platform. There's a new studio space. I've moved it here so that I'm closer to a television so that no matter what day of the week it is, there's always something on in the background. It won't distract me from podcasting necessarily, but you get the drift. And guys, with training camp opening, there's only one team I want to talk about. Oh, yeah, that's the Patriots, of course. And who better to talk that with than my guy, McGarvin. McGarvin, how are you doing today?
I am doing well, thriving, as they say, thriving, surviving, all that. Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. You know what? We've waited like 5 months for this date to come, and camp's starting to open tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday. You're going to see all the action going. But before we get into any of that, I saw one thing on Twitter that I had to immediately address, and I'm going to overlay it on top of us, and that's this wonderful thing that USA Today does every year when they come out with their records. And I got to say, the one glaring thing that stood out for me the most was the Kansas City Chiefs going 10-7 and the Denver Broncos going 10-7, and somehow the Chargers going 7-10. Is there anything? That
is optimistic.
Is there anything on here that you see as just, not out of the ordinary, like just not ordinary?
Yeah. Okay. So let's start over here at the Patriots at 7 wins. That's a little lower than I expected. I have them at 9 personally. I can be talked into 10 or 11. But with 7-10 there, I think the double digits for the Bills, Jets, and Dolphins is highly unrealistic. It kind of reminds me of what we did last year with the whole AFC West thing. Everyone's like, "Oh yeah, every team is going to go 14-3. It's going to be great." I just don't understand how that happens. So that can go somewhere. Other than that, it all looks sort of right. I think the NFC South is probably the one I'd put money on that right now. 9-8, 9-8, 7-10, and 5-12. I think the Bucs are probably going to be a little better than 5-12. I think we're sleeping on them a little too much, generally speaking. And then the Eagles at 12-5. I like the Eagles. I just don't really. I think that division is too competitive for them to run away with it here. We got a 3-win lead there for the Eagles to win the division. That feels a little strong with the Cowboys in that division. I don't really believe in the Commanders, but I think the Giants might be able to do something. So I don't really love that either. And I think the Raiders at 3-14 is way too low. That is just comical.
Yeah, like the Raiders, yeah, sure, they're not the best right now, but they're not 3-14 bad.
Yeah.
The other one too is the Vikings going 7-10. I know a lot of people like to write off them, especially because of their defense and everything. But I look at that and I'm like, I think I've talked to you about this before. Like the Lions, I like, but I'm not ready to hand them the keys yet. I'm like, guys.
Yep.
You got Kansas City week 1. You got some stuff to do.
Yeah.
That's just it. That's just it. But anyway, Diego Fago, Patriot future captain, if I may add. It's like as soon as I see like Navy linebacker wears a neck roll, someone pointed that out on Twitter. I'm just like, yeah, you're gonna be a Patriot lifer at that point.
That's gonna work. Yeah. I don't know anything about him. He's one of the few players. I know he came out of the draft last year. I don't know anything about him. So I saw the name. They're like, oh yeah, Diego Fago, and I was like, all right, cool, whatever. This is a team that employs what's his name, Calvin Munson at linebacker here. I'm not really worried about the third string linebackers all that much, really.
No, and to be honest, if there's any other linebacker note you want to make off the hop, it's Anefri Jennings going back to 33. It's just like sun and breakout season. That's what's happening.
Oh yeah. And I think Anthony Jennings, he played really well last year in a limited role. I know that he didn't have the huge sack numbers, but it's not really his role. He's more of a run stopping edge. And I think he did a pretty good job of that. So I think him switching to 33 bodes well. 33 is an elite number. It sucks that we had used it on Joejuan Williams for as long as we did, but glad to see it's in better hands now. So I'm looking forward to that. And while we're on the subject of linebackers, another player I really want to see literally anything from is Ronnie Perkins. Like, show me something. Play a game.
I've been banging that drum for literally 2 seasons now where I'm like, he's going to be good. I still remember that draft night of him. He's the guy falling down the draft board. He's the guy where it's like, hey, he's still there. But then he gets taken by the Patriots, I think, in like 96. And then we haven't heard anything from him. It's just been injury after injury. Like, he's a player I think can really come out of nowhere, kind of like in the sense of what Uche did last year if he is healthy and if he's given the right opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah, like I'm not out here
I
clamoring
don't disagree
DPOY
with
or
that.
anything, but
Yeah, I think he's probably, your fourth edge rusher behind, Anthony Jennings or Keon White, whoever takes that role. And then you have Ronnie Perkins. I think he's probably a good developmental guy. I like what I saw out of him, especially in the preseason. Was it 2 years ago? It was just like I remember thinking the entire time, like, yeah, this guy's not going to let any kind of bootleg, get him by surprise because he was always chasing those down so well. So I'm curious to see what that looks like. I know there were a few times this year that I thought the team missed him, so it'll be it'll be good to see. So that's going to be a player that I have my eye on heading into camp. I really want to see literally anything from him.
yeah, that's just it. You want to see him perform, you want to see him thrive, and you want to see him succeed in camp. I think there's is there a position of concern or worry for you when it comes to this team? And I'm going to get one out of the way right away. There's no quarterback camp this year. No camp. There's no quarterback competition this year. We all know what's happening. And for everyone last year, look, I know you and I banged this drum before. We like to forget about the Bears game in Patriot Nation.
Yep. That game didn't even happen.
Nope. We Men in Black memory wiped it from our.
Exactly.
Yep.
I think for me though, position of concern might be a little strong, but I am a little worried, I guess, about the offensive.
Let's call it cautious.
The offensive tackle situation. I'm not a big Calvin Anderson believer. Riley Reif has some moments, but I mean, at this point, given his age, I just don't really know what we're going to see. He's like 33, 34 years old. So I'm just like, I'd like to see a younger, developmental prospect there. I know you have City Sow, who they say they'll play at tackle. That'll be interesting to see, but I don't know. That offensive tackle situation isn't great. They also have Connor McDermott over there playing tackle as well. So I don't know. And then Trent Brown, whether or not he's healthy, I think the O-line needs to be significantly better this year versus last year. I think for as much talk as, everyone has had across Patriots Nation about, the weapons. Oh, we need better wide receivers, more tight ends, better this, better that. I think it really does start up front because that was the biggest issue. Mac Jones played really well when he was not pressured, and he played really poorly when he was. And unfortunately, he was pressured a ton. So overall, you just feel like, all right, he didn't play very well. I think if you can give him some time behind an offensive line that isn't letting guys run free, because that was the biggest issue. It wasn't even just guys getting beat one-on-one. It was just guys just letting dudes blow right by them. And I'm like, cool, that was sick. I wish you kind of blocked him a little bit, but now that's sick. So I think if you can get it behind an offensive line, you can get a better sense of who he is or who he is going to be in the league. I think last year we don't talk enough about how bad the offensive line situation is. I mean, we know how bad it was because they signed Connor McDermott off the Jets practice squad and he was starting a week later. And yet, we spent the entire offseason talking about weapons, yet, get that man a line who can protect and we'll see what we can do from there.
That's just it, because that's the thing. Like left tackle, I'm not too concerned with Trent. I feel like he'll be fine. He's got to stay healthy. That's the big thing with me. It's just that right side, in shape too. I saw him getting a new car at Gillette Stadium instead of Kendrick Bourne, which I'm going to bring this up because I know last year this was my big take. I'm going to call this right now. I think I was a year early on my Kendrick Bourne take for 1,000. I think I was, because I'm seeing highlights of him and Mac hooking up in 21, and it was the game. There's the touchdown against the Jets. There's a touchdown against the Browns, but that's not even the most impressive one. Mine was when the 75-yarder against the Dallas Cowboys.
That was fun. That was fun. Although I think that Browns game might have been maybe Mac's best game throwing the football. That was pretty sick. I was just like, all right, he's just slinging it, and that is A-okay with me. And I can understand why you think that on Bourne. I'm curious to see how it looks. I know last year it never looked right, and I was highly critical of him. In fact, maybe in hindsight, maybe a little too critical. But knowing the player that he was in 21 and the player that he showed that he could be, I was just not ready to accept any kind of mediocrity from him. Everyone's like, oh, it's all Patricia's fault. But at the same time, he just wasn't playing well when he did play. I think the biggest lie told on Twitter right now is that, Kendrick Bourne didn't play a lot last year. He did, especially, after the halfway point of the season, he played a lot of snaps. He just wasn't really doing anything with it. And I think that's really telling that after the season, or actually it was not too long ago this year, maybe a few months, he had stated that, he didn't give his maximum effort last year. So, this year's a new slate and all that, clean slate and all that. So I just, if he's locked in, I think that prediction for 1,000 might might be prescient. Like that might be like a really good call. If he's not, I don't even know if he makes the team. So I think that's kind of where we are with Kendrick Bourne.
Yeah, like I say that like optimistically, but like cautiously optimistically, where I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, he could be 1,000 because I think if he's used right and he's used in the right situations, yeah,
For sure.
absolutely he can get that because it's the wide receiver position. The D Hop thing aside, which we'll get into in a little bit, this team still is relatively talented. Like you look at them, it's not like D Hop was making them go from like the 25th best receiver room in the NFL to like the 5th best. You know, if anything, it bumps it up by like 4 or 5 spots, which like, hey, it's a great thing to have. It's like when you go to the store and like you see something you want to buy, but you're like, do we really need it? No. Or is it worth it for the price, especially with how prices are on everything nowadays? So that's how I look at that with the D Hop situation. But more than anything, if I really want to talk about a receiver I'm high on this year for the right reasons, I think I got to go Thornton more than anyone else because
you get that.
Because if you put him in the X and you let him run properly, he's going to cook cornerbacks in this league.
Yeah, and we saw bits and pieces of it last year. It just wasn't one consistent or two. They weren't obviously able to get the ball down there because, like we talked about, the O-line was an issue. And then there were times where he did have a good look and Mac just missed him, which happens. But I hear you. I'm all in on Tyquan. I thought last year he looked, especially early in camp, I was like, wow, he looks like a hit. Like he looks like he can play. He had a better release package than I thought coming out. He really good quickness, and then he broke his collarbone. So then, that obviously, ruined things a little bit there. But I'm high on Tyquan as well, and it appears the team is as well. Otherwise, obviously you would address that position, but they think they seem to have enough with Juju, Tyquan, and Devontae Parker, as well as Kendrick Bourne. So I guess we'll see who's right in the end. I think though we could have a good year from Tyquan, assuming he stays healthy.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's just one of those like healthy things because you always have these second year guys. Like I know everyone this year is like, which second year quarterback is going to take a leap? And I've seen people say Bailey Zappi, which I'm like, guys, no, Bailey. We know what Bailey's role is. Bailey, Mac is hurt.
Right, exactly. If he's taking a leap, the season's lost. So
yeah, that's exactly it. It's like, and especially too, you can't afford to have that, especially in a year where it's a huge make or break year for Mac, where it's a big, hey, next year, because the 5th-year option question comes up next year, because you're seeing all these 2020 quarterbacks in the 5th-year option situation. I know Tua's was picked up, I know Herbert's was picked up, and I know Jalen Hurts obviously got his bag, but he's in a different situation all on his own. Shout out Nicole Lynn, who's getting players paid left and right.
She has been killing it lately, getting all those extensions done.
And apparently, too, she's about to have a kid as well, so she's doing this while pregnant.
Wow, good for her. Yeah, superwoman over there.
Yeah, but no, even like when I look at this room, too, because I've been getting the same question from people about the Dalvin Cook situation. Like, I've been getting asked, like, hey, do you think the Patriots need him? And I'm like, I view it in the same limelight as I view the DeAndre Hopkins thing, where I'm like, not necessarily, no. Would it be a nice thing to have? Yes. But at the same time, too, if they go into a season where the running back room is Ramondre with Kevin Harris, Pierre Strong, and you have J.J. Taylor in the practice squad, I think that's completely fine. And then J.J. Taylor is there for that like break glass in case of emergency, because I want to lay this scenario out for you with the running backs how I view them. You basically have Ramondre is your first down, your second down back. Kevin Harris is like your goal line back, kind of like what Alexander Mattison was under Dalvin Cook in Minnesota all those years. And then Pierre Strong is your third down receiving back, kind of like what James White, Shane Vereen, etc.
Yeah. So with that, I would think that they should add a running back. If I were the Patriots, I would add a running back. Just because I agree with all of your archetypes, the way you've slotted those guys. I just don't think you have anyone to spell Ramondre Stevenson on first or second down. I haven't seen enough from Kevin Harris to kind of just like stick him in that role. So if you're looking for the best way I put it is Ramondre Stevenson is your do it all back, right? He can run, he can catch, he can he can churn it out. Cool. I don't know if Kevin Harris can be that. And that's not a knock on his skills. I just literally don't know if he can be that. But if he can't, then you have no one else to back up Ramondre in the instance that he's hurt or he needs to take a breather or anything like that. So I would add another back. I don't know that it needs to be Dalvin Cook. I actually don't think it should be Dalvin Cook. I think with all the talk we've had over the last week and a half of about all of the running back contracts and all that, I don't see a situation where you have one of the top running backs who's never had less than 1,000 yards rushing in his career, made every Pro Bowl known to man, like who's a really decorated player, I can't imagine, you bring him in, you give him a $1.50 to back up Ramondre Stevenson. That I don't understand how that would make any sense. So I don't think that that's a player that they should add. It'd be nice, obviously, like you said, that would be really nice, but I don't know that that's necessarily the player you're looking to add. They did just add Jalen Hurd, the wide receiver / running back / tight end out of Baylor / Tennessee, who was drafted in the 3rd round by the San Francisco 49ers. Literally never played a snap for them in the regular season, given that he had a back injury his rookie year, knee injury his sophomore year, and another knee injury his I guess junior year, his 3rd year in the league. So I wonder if they're going to use him as a running back. But I think right now the running back room is like good. You just kind of need someone to back up Ramondre. Or, I mean, if we're trying to be a little more honest with it, you just kind of need someone to take some of those reps when it comes to the preseason games, right? Because I don't know that you can give Kevin Harris the ball 17 times in a preseason game and just tell him, like, get out there and go do your thing, carry us to victory. I don't necessarily know that that's the guy that you want to do that with, but we'd see.
Oh, no, like when I say Kevin Harris is like your short down back, I mean like what LeGarrette Blount was for the Patriots in the mid 2010s. Hey, go be a bowling ball and just run through people. That's what I kind of view Kevin Harris as, more than hey, go get 12 yards on 1st and 10. No, I don't expect that from Kevin Harris. I expect him to truck a bitch, basically. He's like, go out there, go put that linebacker on his ass. That's what I expect out of Kevin Harris.
Yep. We need 2 yards. Go get us 2 yards. We don't need you to pick up 5. We don't need you to pick up 10. Go out there and get the 2 yards. That's what you're here for. Yeah, I agree with that. Pierre Strong is a really interesting player, though. I think he's exciting. He's so fast. And they're obviously grooming him to be in that pass catching role. I think he'd be a really good change-up back. I think he's more Rex Burkhead than James White, and I would love to see a little more of that, where he's like, you can give him the ball and like let him run with it, and the results are probably going to be pretty good. Or you can throw him the ball and let him run with it, and the results are probably going to be pretty good. So I think he's the player I'm in that running back room that I'm most interested in. Obviously, Ramondre Stevenson is who he is. He's an absolute stud. But I think Pierre Strong is probably going to be the one to watch once the pads come on in camp.
I like that Rex Burkhead. That's a spicy little take. I like that a lot. Like I was leaning more towards like Shane Vereen. I just say James White because when you think pass,
right, you obviously go with James White. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then even still, like this is a team where I know everyone's saying this year, it's like, oh, the Patriots are gonna be bad. The Patriots are gonna be this. I know I saw you on Twitter today. You weren't too fond of this, but the fact that the Patriots have not only their first 3 games in the CBS prime slot, they have the first week 2 Sunday Night Football in these glorious red uniforms of my dad.
Yeah.
They also are America's Game of the Week 4 in Dallas on Fox. So.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I was looking at the schedule today, and I see they're playing the Dallas Cowboys at 4:25 on Fox. That's Kevin Burke. That just screams to me Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olsen.
Oh, yeah. Probably the best duo in the league at this point.
For any of you guys out there that were bearable, thank you very much. We had the same conversations before. We went over some stuff we were talking about there. But anyway, guys, we're going on to this. Because why? Because McGarvin loves Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olsen. I almost said John Olsen for a second. I don't know why. I'm having a case of the Mondays right now, guys. Let's just call it that. It's a case of the Mondays. Welcome to camp.
Yeah, love. So I was saying I love Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olsen. I think they're probably the best commentary duo in the league at this point. Ever since Tony Romo's precipitous fall off. So I was really bummed about seeing him. Us getting Nance and Romo. Two of the first 3 weeks. I'm like, that's so tough. But maybe Romo bounces back and he's less insufferable than last season or the season prior to that, where it feels like he's rooting or he gets upset when like the underdog is winning or things like that. So I'm just like, I'm hopeful that that's not the case. But I think that you bring up a good point. The Patriots are drawing the top commentary teams, and they're getting pretty good slots as far as time goes. I know that they didn't have a ton of primetime games. They don't have the maximum 6 primetime games, but 4 o'clock games are a little better anyway. So I'll take it.
I like 4 games to the way you get to play. You play your game and then you get to watch. It's not like there's like a where you lose. Hey, 4 o'clock, on 7:30, and then so
you're like cutting in and out. It's like clipping.
It's one of those things where you you have the 1 o'clock games, you watch those, you play your game, and then you go to prime time. So if you lose, it's like you only have one game to watch before you go to bed.
Yeah. Yeah. I hate, I don't like, so 2 reasons I don't like primetime games at this point. One, I'm getting old, so I'm just like, man, 8 o'clock is a really late start. And then 2, losing a primetime game is terrible because that's literally all that's going to be on your, like, you're going straight from a loss to thinking about it all night. You wake up in the morning and that's all anyone's talking about. You're like, dang, I can't believe this. Whereas like losing a nice 1 o'clock or a 4 o'clock game, you're like, all right, like, people are going to be upset for like a few hours, and then everyone's going to talk about, Sunday Night Football, so we can move on.
And then there's one game this year that I know is a 4 o'clock game, but I feel like it's going to be brought up so much. And I look at that Week 6 game in Vegas, and I'm like, there's going to be one thing that's going to be talked about the entire week. And that's literally the play from the end of the game last year. Like,
yeah,
I'm reading that, and I'm like,
yeah, I'm not super looking forward to that, especially because I don't think Vegas is that good a team. And we're just going to spend a lot of time pretending that they are just because they beat the Patriots of 22, which was a very bad team, but that's how it goes.
That's it. It's just one of those things where it's like, hey, they're like fake good. It's like, I remember week 2 last year when week last year in 2019, Patriots Dolphins, and it was literally the same commentary team of Ian Eagle and Fouts, and they did the Miami Miracle as well. So they kept bringing it up and up and up. But what happened in that game? Patriots won 43-0. So by the end of the game, it was
exactly right.
About.
They'd already burned through everything they had to talk about, by halftime because the game was just a Grizzly blowout. So, we'll see. I hope there's more to talk about than, oh my gosh, Jacoby Myers threw the game away. Because there's going to be a lot of Jacoby Myers talk in the first place. There's going to be a lot of Juju talk, especially if Jacoby is outplaying Juju in Vegas. It's going to be a lot of talk, from especially. One, there's going to be a lot of talk on the internet in general, but I think from the commentary team as well about, the Patriots swapping out Jacoby for Juju. Hopefully that's not a talking point, and it's just like, the Patriots made the right decision, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's a big wait and see. I don't think it's that because, like I remember you and I talked about this in March. It was all about the yak, where basically Juju gets more yak than Jacoby does. So it's one of those things where, hey, he's reliable there. And besides, with Jacoby Myers, the only reason I can see him being better potentially is just because he's not going to be wide receiver 1. We all know who that is in Vegas. So we'll see what happens. But at the same time, too, that's another Bill Belichick, Jimmy Garoppolo game.
Yeah. So, but then what ends up happening with someone like Hunter Renfrow if Jacoby Myers slots into the role? Pardon the pun. If he slots into that slot role, what happens to Hunter Renfrow? I think it's been really weird with him because there's a lot of talk about him like being potentially moved or whatever the case is, and I just don't really understand why. He's a good player, so I just don't understand why Vegas would want to move on from him. But it kind of feels like it's a when, not if matter.
I look at that situation as I fix my microphone here live on air. Stupid teams do stupid things.
Yeah.
Where it's like basically some teams, it's like, why do they do this? And you remember, hey, this team's management's not exactly the best. This team's management's less than ideal. So that's where that move comes in. Because it's going to be one of those things where, like, do you remember that random trade the Patriots did all those years ago when they traded Jacoby Brissett to the Colts for Philip Dorsett?
Yeah.
They'll be like one of those. It's just like, oh, okay, like I guess one's not as good as we thought he was, so now he's on the team, and all of a sudden, hey, he's being used properly, and he's great.
Yeah, I guess we'll see how that goes for Vegas there. Like I said, that game is going to be a lot of pomp and circumstance. I just hope it's warranted. I think as you get further down the schedule, there are some games that are that won't get talked about that should get talked about. Like I think that Chiefs Patriots game is probably going to be a lot better than a lot of people expect because the Patriots have in their limited matchups. So I think they played like 3 or 4 times at this point, but they've had, they've kind of had Patrick Mahomes' number in the first half of those games. So I'm curious, I'm curious to see how it looks with this squad because I don't think it's as a slam dunk like, oh yeah, the Chiefs are going to blow out the Patriots because they're the better team. Like that may very well be true, but I just don't think that's what's going to happen. I think in general though, I think that kind of speaks to something that I've always thought where we spend a lot of time worried about like, oh, this team's so much better than the Patriots. It's going to be a Grizzly blowout. The Patriots don't really get blown out, right? Even, looking back the last few years, they've been blown out, twice, right? You had the Bills in the Bills in the playoffs. That was a hideous game. And then the Bears game, the game that shall not be named. But other than that, for as asses last year's team was, they were in a lot of those games, including both of the Bills games. So, I don't know. I can't imagine that everyone's like doom, their doom radar going off makes any sense, where they're like, oh no, like what are we gonna do? They're gonna smoke us. Like that's just not what's gonna happen. So I think looking down the line, that's a game that I'm really curious to see how that one plays out.
That game is also 2 days before my 30th birthday, so it'd be a hell of a birthday gift for Patriots if you could actually go out there and win that.
Pick up a nice little W. Yeah.
Yep, because the last 3 years, the games around my birthday have been as follows. There was the game in Miami where they were eliminated from contention, which was on my birthday. 2021 was the game where Jonathan Taylor basically called game and ran it down Devin McGarvin's throat.
That game stressed me out. Yep. Yep.
And then last year, we all know what happened, where I'm literally in this basement watching with family, and everyone's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm just there, like, in my head, I'm like, "I'm fucking right now." Like, I didn't say a word. Like, I was just like, I need my me time.
Yeah.
I need my me time, like, away from everybody right now.
So I gotta process this.
Yeah. I'm like mentally dead inside right now. So after the last 3 years of them. The other game I have circled on my calendar is that Thursday night, the game before that against the Steelers, actually, because that could be a true playoff eliminator at that point, or a game where it's like, hey, if you lose this game, the loser of that game, it's going to be harder for you to make the playoffs, or it's going to be like, hey, you have to clear these hurdles. But no, I love your analogy about the Kansas City game, because when I look at the Patriots and Mahomes' history, I don't want to go to the week 6 primetime game where it was a blowout and Gronk had that unreal catch, and then Gostkowski sealed the kick with the win, or the NFC Championship game where my favorite moment from that was still David Andrews with the "see ya, bye."
After the game winner, yeah.
It's the 2020 game that got moved twice, where that team that was horrible without Cam Newton was down. I think it was 10-3 or 10-7 going into the half.
Yeah,
and where I'm like, okay, this is how I know that. Like, this is why I was so confident in that team, because I'm like, hey, they hung with Mahomes the year when Mahomes was supposed to be this unstoppable force. So I love that analogy. And plus, too, the Chiefs, they played Buffalo the week before. And that's a game where everyone's going to be all over them.
Yeah, they're going to be jacked up for that one for sure.
Yeah. Or as I like to call it, that game. So I have two analogies for announcers. That game is the Tony Romo wet dream, and then we have week 4 with Chiefs and Jets, where that's the Collinsworth's wet dream, because he loves watching Mahomes and he loves to watch Aaron Rodgers play as well.
He loves quarterbacking. I like Chris Collinsworth, so I don't care what game he's calling. I'm like, bring it in. That's fine with me.
But I know you did this too, and lost in all the shuffle and everything, and I agree with you on this. I'm excited to see Jason McCourty call football games. I think he's going to be great.
Yeah. He has such a good personality.
He's doing great on Good Morning Football.
Yeah, he is incredible. I think Devin will eventually get there, probably next year, depending on how much work he's trying to do. Fresh out of retirement. But I think that's going to be really fun.
This year.
That's going to be great, because he has such a good personality for television. I think it'll translate seamlessly into the booth.
Yeah. And then, again, I think the same thing, too, that Devin actually brings a flair to NBC, because I feel like out of all the panels, NBC is the one that's like flairless. Like, I love Maria Taylor. She was great doing college football. She's transitioned really well to the NFL. But then you have, like, Jason Garrett, Tony Dungy that are kind of wet blankets. And then Chris Sims is Chris Sims. Like, some of the stuff he says is kind of borderline, like, okay, what are you doing? But I'm not having an issue with Chris Sims. But I think Devin McCourty is going to bring a spark to that panel.
Yeah, I think that'll help a lot. I know they had Rodney Harrison on before, but I don't really think he added all that much personally.
No, I think he's just more in the stadium, because it's like you need a football guy. You need like the X's and O's. You need the guy that's going to know that, and that's where Rodney comes into play. So we'll see that. The other one too is I'm curious to see what Matt Ryan's going to be like in the booth.
Yeah, that'll be fun. That will be fun. He's not a person I think of as like a gregarious, like, outgoing kind of guy. So I'm really curious to see how he makes that transition to the booth. For me, he kind of reminds me a lot of Jason Witten, and I just hope that his booth experience is a little better than that.
Not as robotic and not as many hair plugs, let's hope. Um, I have a shitty hairline myself, but you know what? We all know Jason had that in because he's bald.
That
All of a
was.
sudden,
Then all of a
got
sudden
his
he's
hair.
had hair a week later. Yeah, it was sick.
It's like I still think the weirdest one apart from that was the Brian Urlacher one from
Yeah.
after he retired, where it's just like you've been bald your entire career and you have a full head of hair. It's like, dude, what are you doing?
And it looked bad.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's not like it looks good. It's just like that looks like a toothpaste.
It's terrible. Why'd you do that?
I think that Matt Ryan has that Romo potential in the sense of not for the entertainment value, but for his knowledge of the game. That he's coming right off and like he's going to be able right away. You know, the quarterback X and O's like true football guy. Like he's going to go and view it from that player's perspective. And I also like breaking it up with CBS because guys like Catalan and Lofton weren't really working for me because like Catalan's okay, but Lofton sometimes will say some stuff where I'm like, okay, what are you doing here?
Yep.
But then CBS I'm excited for. We'll see what the Fox crews look like. But it's gonna be a good season of football. It's gonna be a great season of football. But transitioning back to our team now, the Patriots. The other game I also look at for this team where I'm like, go out there and prove yourself is still that week 7 game in the week 7 game with Buffalo. And then as well the week, I want to say 13 game when they play the Chargers, the game where they will be wearing their I have a jersey scenario for you. The Patriots wear those and the Chargers come out that day saying, we're bringing our powder blues back just for this one game. Like, just I want to see those throwback matchups happen.
That would be a lot of fun. I just don't know that I just don't know if the NFL would allow 2 teams to wear like dark colors ever since that fiasco. What year was that? 2015. The first year they had Color Rush, they had the Rams and the Bucks play. And it was like this obnoxious yellow, and it was like a condiment bowl.
Oh God!
Oh, you're cutting out again.
Buccaneers wrong on. I don't know. It's technical difficult. Buccaneers had like red Color Rush uniform.
Yep. And the Rams had their yellow ones. And it was, I believe, their last year in St. Louis. And because I remember they were inside that terrible dome. And I was like, this is just terrible to watch.
I think that game. And then I'm going to Buccaneers and the red backs. Those overpants. Remember football game 2017 with the Patriots white?
Yeah, they had the white pants. That was the Thursday night game against the. Yeah, it didn't match though. Like they, as weird as it sounds, they had like it looked like 2 different color whites, and I was like, what is happening here?
If they can do it properly, I'm gonna be like, I'm in love with this. And I also love the fact that they're wearing the reds for the first time though in prime time against Miami, where it's like
the Brady game.
Yeah, it's not the Brady game. It's the Dolphin game week 2.
Is the Dolphin game not the Brady game?
No, the Brady game's the Eagle game week 1, I believe.
No way, really? Oh, wow, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
I thought it was the second. It was the primetime game against the Dolphins. Wow. Okay, cool. Yeah, that'll be great. I think that'll be in Foxborough, so no early season trip to Miami. We don't have to go down there and get our hearts broken too soon. So that'll be fun.
The Miami game, I think, is week 8. If I want to guess off the top of my head, which I don't mind that time of year because it's like late October, early November, where the weather's not going to be insanely hot, but it's not going to be like anything terrible to deal with. So I'm like, okay, cool. I want to get off the Patriots for a second because I want to go to uniforms. I got to say, out of all the teams that are doing throwbacks, we're not counting the Colts for obvious reasons. They're suck.
The dark blues, yeah, I don't love those.
It's so bad. There's one.
I tried really hard too. Cause I was like, oh, was this like kind of like low key fire? And I was like, no, it's actually hot trash.
No, it's like you look at it, it's like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
So there's one team though that did their release beautifully, and there's one team that I'm sorry, as soon as I saw them, I'm like, I'm in love.
Seahawks.
And that's the Seattle Seahawks.
Oh yeah. Those are sexy. I was like, whoa. So especially with so many teams ruining their throwbacks, like not doing enough. I think those look so good. That blue is like an incredible blue, and I wish it was their primary color, but that's fine. I think theirs is incredible.
Minnesota, really nice as well.
Okay, I like the Minnesota ones. I think it's subtle, but it looks good.
It's they didn't do too much, but it pops.
Yep. Yep.
You know
I
how
like
they say
that.
less is more? They
Yeah.
did that.
Absolutely. I think the Titans, the Oilers look, they unveiled that earlier today. That looked really good too. So I know that there are some fans down in Houston who aren't happy with that. They're, no, it should be, Houston, it should be Houston. But I don't know. I thought it looked really good. So
Yeah, I did too. And then the other one that came out today is the New York Stock Exchange revival. I'm sorry. I'm like, I know we don't like the Jets here, but I'm like, those jerseys are clean.
I don't know. I don't like the font on the number, right? I'm thinking right now in my mind, I'm thinking of the Aaron Rodgers 8. I don't like how that looked, but I don't know. It's the Jets. I think it's better than their current uniform, so that's a win.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's a win when you do that. And then the only other one,
the Browns.
I like.
The Browns have theirs with the white helmet. I thought that was so mid.
Like it's like, I'm not saying it's like great, but I'm like, when I saw that, I'm like, hey, you know what? It's ain't bad. It's like when you go to a restaurant, you're like, how's the food? It's good. It's not like it's the best thing you've ever had, but it's not awful by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, you know what it is? I thought at first glance, and maybe it's just me, but at first glance, it looked a little too much like the University of Miami. Right, the brown in the picture kind of reminded me of the green, and I'm like, ooh. But then once I saw that it was brown, I'm like, okay, like maybe I like it more. But the more I look at it, the more I'm just like, I'm sorry, this just doesn't do it for me.
I got you. I completely understand where you're coming from there. They're a team. I want to go to them for a second because you talked about them, and this is also me just going wherever I want because it's my podcast, my rules, people.
Oh yeah.
The thing with them is, and I really wish someone from the PR team would talk to him, is to tell Deshaun Watson if people bring up the massage stuff, don't
just say no comment. Just say no comment and move on. Yeah.
Because for him to try to like put this good person image on, sorry to interrupt you, this good person image on it, I'm like, dude, you're doing more to hurt yourself than to help yourself. So it's like one of those situations where it's like someone should just get in his ear and be like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah. I can't imagine that they don't have a PR person standing there. Like I know the Patriots do. They have Stacey James. Whenever a player is doing at the podium, whatever, Stacey James is there, and he's kind of has an eye on things, and he'll move a question along if he feels like the player shouldn't answer it or anything. I think the Browns need to do the same thing because every time Deshaun Watson speaks, it's more or less like I've done nothing wrong, and everyone's like I can't believe him, and I'm like, well, if he keeps maintaining that. At some point, he just needs to just stop. Even if he fully in his heart believes like he did nothing wrong, which would insane to me. Even if he does truly believe that, I just think he needs to stop saying it because that's kind of the issue that he keeps mentioning it. They keep baiting him, and he keeps taking the bait. And I don't know. I can't imagine being a Browns fan, right? And like just having to excuse that behavior or having to pretend it doesn't bother me because I'm just like I don't know, man. Just shut up. Like
exactly.
You basically got away with murder. You were suspended only 11 games. You got the huge contract, $230 million guaranteed. You got away with murder. Don't go back to the crime scene. Just kind of move on from it. But I don't know.
Yeah, I love that analogy. Don't go back to the crime scene. Like that's what. Instead of me calling this podcast, in case of Mondays, I'm calling it "Don't Go Back to the Crime Scene." So it's just like I love going for those unique titles. So folks, if you got this far in the podcast, you know where we got it from. That's just the thing where I look at that where I'm like, dude, okay, like let's stop. And I'll say this too because how like we love NFL, but we each have our niche football. Let's call it. You're a big USFL guy.
Mm-hmm.
I cover the local CFL team here, the Toronto Argonauts. So I'm gotten to know like the media people there. Look at me, I'm a guy with a podcast and covers the football team. And basically, whenever the coaches talk in front of the banner, there's the communications manager right there, basically just like, okay, it's like it. And he'll tell us too, like, hey, last question and everything like that. So it's just when you said that, it just ding sparked that right for me. So that's how that goes. And also, folks, for when we say niche football, look, the USFL and the CFL. The NFL, no. Is it good football though? Yes, it is.
Yes, and I'm always down for good football. I don't care where it's coming from.
CBS Sports Network for anyone in the States wanting to watch the CFL. I have to give the shameless plug out. The one thing I want to talk to you about when it comes to this football team, going back to the Patriots. If I had to give you two rookies, which one are you more excited to see? Is it Gonzalez or is it Mapu?
Oh, sheesh. Oh, dang. Tough one right off the bat, huh? Let's see. I think it's probably Mapu, only because I think I know what Christian Gonzalez is. I think he is going to just be like a day one, like just shut him down, like put him out there and don't worry about him. He'll give up a few here or there, but he's not gonna lose you any games. Whereas Marte Mapu, I'm curious to see, because this is the first time that the Patriots have a linebacker with his build who is going to be playing primarily linebacker, right? Because you think they had Mac Wilson, and he's a little smaller, but weighs about the same, right? About 230-ish.
Yeah.
And it for Mac Wilson, by the end of the year, they weren't even playing him on defense anymore. You know what I mean? So like, just because he was undersized and wasn't making the tackles he needed to make, but you have Marte Mapu, who goes 6'3", 230. That's good size. And it's what a lot of Patriots fans were asking for years prior, right? Everyone's like, oh, we need a Deion Jones. We need a new school linebacker. No more of the big guys. Give us someone fast who can run. And they went out and got one. Sure, he's a safety, but they were like, yeah, we're going to get him a safety. We're going to stick him in the box and let him play. So I'm really curious to see how he's deployed for the Patriots, right? Because I think, obviously you can have him covering tight ends and you'll feel comfortable with that. But I think the Patriots have no shortage of players who can cover tight ends. I think Kyle Duggar does a good job of that. Adrian Phillips does a great job of that. Jabril Peppers can do it, So I'm curious to see how that looks. But I'm excited. I'm excited to see him but to reiterate, I'm going Marte Mapu because I think Christian Gonzalez is just going to be like set and forget it, plug it and play. Like he's over there. You just know he's taking care of whoever he's taking care of.
That's exactly it. We know what we're getting out of Gonzalez, but then Mapu, I feel like, you're going to plug and play him in different places. Mac Wilson's biggest highlight of the last year was still trucking the special teamer on the Jets when Marcus Jones had the wild return.
Yeah.
But him at number 3 this year too. That's going to look. It's just all these defenders. I'm picturing their new numbers, and I'm like, I don't care how you're going to play. You're still look nasty and clean in that number. Like when
Peppers in 5. Holy cow.
Wilson in 3.
Yeah.
And Jennings in 33. So I'm saying like you're going to have. Like, just Jabril Peppers, someone really knows the Peppers. One going to forget that. I've got to come out of nowhere. Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, I think the assumption here is that Christian Gonzalez is going to wear 0, and I'm not a huge fan of the number 0 on jerseys. I think most of the time it doesn't look very good, but I think it'll look good on him. Right, I think it's a good cornerback number. Whereas, like, imagine a D tackle in number 0 or a wide receiver in number 0. It's just not. I don't know. The aesthetic isn't there for me. Whereas, like 0 on a corner, you're like, I can get behind that. I can get jiggy with this.
Yeah, and then one fun fact actually I learned about Gonzalez recently is that his brother-in-law is in the NFL as well.
Oh, who's his brother-in-law?
David Blau.
No way! Really?
Yeah,
that's kind of sick. Where is David Blau now? I know last year he was with the Cardinals. Is he still milling about over there?
You know what? I do things on the fly, so I'm going to pull out my phone and trust Google because that's the last thing I looked up too. Because I know last year he was with Detroit. He's still with the Cardinals.
Love it. Yeah, I like David Blau. I think he's the right kind of. He's the kind of player that I think is super easy to root for because, like, obviously he came in for the Lions that year and just ended up. What was it? I think his first or second start was on Thanksgiving, and they were just like, "Yeah, bud, you're gonna get out there and go play the game." Yeah, and he was playing well too. So I think he's a good player to root for because, like, you just know, like, all right, he's not going to win you a ton of games, but he's not going to lose you any either. So, like, you give him a good situation and let him just back up, you'll be fine.
I'm looking at their quarterback room in Arizona right now because I just clicked on it, and it's not pretty.
Is it gross? I'm sure it's gross.
David Blau.
Yep.
Jeff Driscoll.
What? I can't believe he's still around.
Colt McCoy.
I can't believe he's still around.
And Clayton Tune, because obviously Kyler Murray is not going to be ready for day one because he's still recovering from the ACL.
Clayton Tune is where did he play? Because for whatever reason, was he Houston?
He was the 5th round pick out of Houston. He was out of Houston.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's an atrocious room, but you have Kyler Murray, so like, if he's back in time, and I don't think he will be, that room looks a little better because I think that David Blau or Colt McCoy are both the kind of backups that you feel pretty comfortable with. You're like, we're fine back there. If any of them has to start, any of the guys you named has to start, they're in trouble, especially Jeff Driscoll. I can't believe he keeps getting checks. I just don't understand that. after what he after what he did for the when he was with the what team was he was with the
Broncos.
The Bengals is who I'm thinking of.
Bengals.
Yeah, after he kind of stunk it out over there, I was like, yeah, bro, that's not going to do. Like, that's just not going to do.
Yeah, and then I go to their schedule quickly, and, like, they open with the Commanders, which is fine. But your next 4, Giants, Cowboys, at San Francisco, and Cincinnati.
Dallas, Cincinnati. Who else?
So it goes at Washington.
Yeah.
Ugh. Home for New York and Dallas.
Which New York? Jets or Giants?
Giants.
That's a winnable game. They can win that.
San Francisco on the road.
Yeah, that's an L.
Home to Cincinnati.
Oh, that's a rough start to the schedule. That is rough. I know the Patriots have no cakewalk themselves, but that is tough.
Yeah, that's the other thing about the Patriots schedule too, where I know other people like to look at it. I'd rather have it like that, where it's spread out. The only really games the Patriots I have, I think, that are back to back that are like easy is when they have the Commanders and then they have that Colts game in Germany. So besides that, the way their schedule is spread out, I don't mind it.
Yeah.
Per se. So we'll see what happens there. And then going back to the Patriots, because I think I've told you this before, but like, you know how there's a couple clips from yours that I watch, or some things you've tweeted that, like, if I ever need a good laugh, I'll go back and watch.
Yeah.
Do you remember your last podcast appearance here, when it was?
I don't.
It was
after the draft. Yeah.
It was on the because of Keyshawn Butte.
Yeah.
Because I just love I talk about another bad I think could be something smart.
I'm sorry. Hit me with that last sentence one more time. It just like cut out on me.
All right, so I'm going to repeat myself again, folks. Sorry for this. I know we talked about Keyshawn Butte because he had the bigger reputation and he was the better receiver coming out of school, even though he was a 6th-round pick.
Yeah.
To save the time and the explanation, I think that Demario Douglas has a higher ceiling than him.
That is a popular take right now, right? Where people, generally speaking, they're like a little higher on Pop Douglas than they are on Keyshawn, and that's fine. I don't necessarily disagree. I think Booty has, or Butte, or however he wants to say. I believe it's Butte, but he said Booty, and I was like, that's just not right for. I know it's your last name, but like, that's not how the French would say it, friend. That's just not correct. So I'm gonna keep going with Butte because like, there's no way they are like, yeah, Booty. Anyways, I think Butte has the higher ceiling because I think at their best, he's the better player. I think now, Pop Douglas is the better player. And if Butte doesn't find that gear that he had at LSU, I think it's just going to play out that Demario Douglas is going to be the guy. I think he has more receiving upside in the slot than I initially thought, because I knew like he'd be returning kicks and all that, but I think he has more juice in the slot than I originally thought. So the battle's going to be a lot closer than I thought, but I still think Keyshawn Butte is like I think he has the inside track. I think it's his roster spot to lose, right? If we're saying they're going to go with Parker and Bourne and Tyquan and Juju, and you say, hey, we're going to keep only one more receiver, I think if I had to, I'd have Keyshawn Butte there first, and then we'll see how it goes. But I'd be cool with either of them making it, because I think Pop Douglas has more. Like I said, he has a lot of juice. I know he's small, he's really undersized, but I think he can find himself a nice little role.
I also think that whoever doesn't make it they're going to get the Trey Nixon practice squad treatment.
Yeah. Speaking of Trey Nixon, I think he's kind of done, ain't he? Like he's had a few years to do something. He's not done a thing, so he's cooked. Yes.
I think if you don't see anything from him by this year, I think that was just a pick that we can kind of like move off to the side and like,
cool,
like just forget about, where it's like, hey, it was a 7th-round pick, it didn't work out. You just Men in Black memory wipe, and it's just like we just forget about that. I know I'm going to give a shout out quickly for Pat Lane, because I know he probably hates me talking about this right now, because I know he was a big Trey Nixon guy.
Yeah.
But at this point, I think it's shit or get off the pot with him this year.
Right. You know who I feel that way about? I feel that way about JJ Taylor. I really felt that way about him last year. It's more just like, I don't know why you're still on this team, friend. But there are people who swear he's going to do it. He's going to do it. And I'm like, well, what is it? Because he's not doing anything.
Yeah, that's it. It's like, okay, what's the it factor in here for him? So it's a big wait and see. Like, even I want to think about next year already because you have all these contract extensions that are due. Like, I think this is a big season for Hunter Henry, just for the sense of how do you play this year is going to determine how much you get or if you're going to stay, because you got to pay Owenu next season. You got to pay Duggar, Judon. There are these guys
Uche's due for an extension as well. Yeah, for sure.
There are a lot of other players that are going to leapfrog you. Adrian Phillips, I think, is another one. He's either up this year or next year. I'm not 100% sure which.
I think he's up next year. I know he had signed a 2-year extension, but I'm trying to remember which summer. The years just blend together.
It was New Year's Day last year. It was New Year's Day.
It was New Year's Day last year. All right, cool. So, yeah, he should be under contract through this year as well. Through this year.
Yeah, so
it was a 3-year extension. So, yeah, he's around. He'll be here.
It's just one of those things, too, where it's like, okay, you got to go out there and improve your roster spot. Like, I'm not saying Hunter Henry's under a lot of pressure, but I'm like, okay, look, because Gesicki's also on a 1-year deal, and it's like one of those things where I'm like, I think Hunter Henry could be replaced for as much as I've liked him in a Patriots uniform, except for the one block game. Because we've talked about this at length.
Yeah, we have to. Just don't ask him to do that.
And if I can see the white boy Gritty in the end zone a few times this year, I'll be happy.
Yeah, I've been sitting on this take, and I wanted to wait until at least Sunday before unleashing it on the world because I wanted to see how it looks in camp. But my hottest take that I have for the Patriots right now is that by the midway point of the season, Mike Gesicki is going to be the focal point of the offense. I know, right? Yeah, I want to see it in action, but I think he just has, he has vertical skills that Hunter Henry doesn't. And that's not to say that Hunter Henry, obviously can't get vertical because he can. I just think he's much faster. I know he's much faster, and I think he gives you a little bit more in terms of positional versatility, right? You can put him in the slot, which you can also do with Henry. You can just stick him out wide and just play him as a wide receiver and probably be pretty okay with that. So I'm curious to see how that plays out. I want to see how it looks with my own eyes after camp, after the first few days of camp, but that's my hot take. I'm like, yeah, Mike Gesicki, tight end 1 by the end of the year.
I have a couple other NFL hot takes I'm going to share with you in a minute. My other one still is that we get the third. Mine is that Mac's going to throw for over. Mac, there's a chance I think for 4,000.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah,
it's going to be enough his interception. I think there's a chance that everyone telling me this team's going to not going to go anywhere. With all this last year, they got eliminated from the very last day of the season.
Yeah, I think we're looking at with Mac in particular, just to kind of jump on that one. I think it's not that far fetched that he hits 4,000. Really, I think what I want to see from him, all right, and what would qualify as like a good season for him, is if we can keep that interception number under 12. I think 1, he can do it, and 2, I think if he's under 12 on interceptions, we'll be fine. As long as he doesn't get gun shy and he's still, willing to throw the football down the field, which wasn't an issue last year. He was more than willing to do that, despite not having the team built for that. But that's my hope for Mac. Just keep the interceptions low and keep the touchdowns increasing. I know last year he only threw for 14, but he gets a mulligan, as does everyone else on that offense, because holy shit, that was bad.
And we're just going to have to hold our breath when Hassan Reddick just slams him into the ground week 1.
Yeah, that is a really rough opponent to start with, right? I think, like I said, I think the Patriots can that game. Just because I've watched enough Eagles games as
goofy shit also happens week 1 every year.
Yeah, and it's just one of those they won a lot of games. They went to the Super Bowl, but they weren't dominating teams like that. They won a lot of really good games because they're a good team. But they weren't just steamrolling folks. And so I think all right, they can win that game, but I think it's just really rough because you know how the Patriots operate. They like to take their time, and the first month of the season they start slow and they're still trying to figure it out. They're still changing line combinations and all that. I just don't think the Philly is the team that you want to, be experimenting. Maybe we'll try Connor McDermott at left tackle. Like, get your starting five, stick with them, and just hope you don't get your quarterback killed.
Exactly. That's the best way to look at it, where it's just like know your shit going into September 10th and then go from there. And then obviously there's the Miami game followed by the Jets game, which that's another game on its own. There is a lot of, I think more than anything, that's a fan bragging rights game. Like the game against the Jets.
Yep.
Because whichever team wins, that fan base is going to be insufferable on Twitter, and the other end is just going to be like, I am muting this app for the day.
Yeah, because on one hand you have the Jets will have won, beating the Patriots for the first time in 8 years. Yeah, which sounds like a made up stat, but like that shit is so real. You're like, yeah, they just haven't won since 2015, that weird overtime game. But then on the other side, you have the Patriots who would feel pretty good about like, oh yeah, everyone said we'd be fourth in the division, and Aaron Rodgers this and Aaron Rodgers that. We just won. So I'm looking forward to that game as well. But I've been in the same mode with New York the entire time, ever since the Aaron Rodgers rumors even began. My entire thing was just show me. Like, don't just tell me how good you're going to be. Show me.
My thing is just with them, like, I think there's chance. I just think everyone coming out right away and, like, declaring them, like, hey, you're this. But then again, if you look at their schedule, too, you play Buffalo and Kansas City in the first 4 weeks of the season. Those are going to be true games.
Yep.
Because if you lose respectably, it's going to be like, okay, you'll get people talking. You go out there and you get, I ain't going to lie, I'm getting cooked kind of results from them. I know I have best impression, but it's like, it's same old, it's going to be the same old Jets. Because like that, like, especially too, like, that's why for as much as I like want to see Detroit succeed, I'm just so bullish on them because the rest of the media seems to be handing them the keys to, like, you know what, they're going to win the NFC North. Goff is this, like, they have all this talent and they're like, Jahmyr Gibbs is gonna be this great player, which I'm so sorry. I like the running back room last year a lot better.
Yeah, I agree. I
like
give Gibbs, them, but I liked Jamal Williams a little more than that.
And also DeAndre Swift to David Montgomery seems like that's a downgrade.
Yes, oh, for certain. I forgot that he got traded to Philly. So yeah, you're right.
Yep. And so with Detroit, to give them Patrick Mahomes week 1, like,
yeah. That's tough. That's tough.
That's going to be a tough game. So with the Jets though, we'll wait and see. So I think it's like a similar logic where it's like, because even I see ESPN and everything where it was like everyone giving the Jets the AFC East, and then Dan Orlovsky, it was just a graphic where it was like Buffalo Bills. Like, I don't watch. That's why it's like the last few weeks I try to stay off football Twitter, because it's all like Colin Cowherd spewing random stuff and like ESPN getting everyone's blood boiling. But when I see that image, I'm like, for as much as I don't like the team, I ain't ready to write Buffalo off. I've had people tell me that, like, oh, Buffalo, like, we know what they are, we're this and this. I'm like, remember last year when Kansas City was supposed to take a step back and they just went out there and won?
And they did not. Right. I agree.
I wouldn't be shocked if this was the year Buffalo finally pushed through. I honestly wouldn't, because, look, no one's talking about them. No one's giving them their due. They got something to play for, because let's be honest, their playoff games, they did not play well at all.
No.
I think that was off-field stuff because of obviously what happened. We're glad that DeMar's healthy, and I don't look, if he's playing week 1, great. But I just think they were mentally exhausted at that point.
For sure. And I think if Miami had their quarterback, then obviously that game's a little different. I think they win that game outright. And to that point, I think Miami's kind of just, I don't know why they're getting like really passed over right now. Where everyone's like, it's the Jets or the Bills, and I'm like, I don't know. I kind of like Miami to take the division. I'm going to be real with you. I think they're a much better team than people are giving them credit for. And I know it all comes down to people just not thinking Tua's that good, which is fine. I think he's fine. I think their defense got much better, right? They added Jalen Ramsey, and that's going to be a huge upgrade there. Caterco, who I think their second-year cornerback, who played really well in the slot last year, I think he's going to take another step forward in his development. You have Xavier. I almost said Byron Jones, who I don't even believe is still in the league. But Xavier Howard, obviously, he's going to play better, especially now that he won't be taking, ostensibly won't be taking the number 1 receiver there. So I think that Miami's getting slept on. I think they made some nice additions. I think Robbie Anderson is a really good addition there. That team is Holland. As I say, that team is fast as fuck. They added Devin A. Chain, Javon Holland, who I really like as well. Brandon Jones, I think they have a really good safety duo there. I think really, if you're looking for a weakness on that Miami team, it's the linebackers. And that's a weakness with an asterisk. I think Jerome Baker is a plenty fine. Like, I think you could do worse than him at linebacker. I believe they re-signed Andrew Van Ginkel at outside linebacker. That'll be good. I don't know. I think they have a good team. I just don't really understand why people are so quick to write them off, especially because they were second in the division last year. And now everyone's like, oh, yeah, the team that came in fourth is definitely going to be, definitely going to be 1 or 2. And I'm like, we just did this last year with the AFC West. I can't believe we're doing it again. But, football coverage is cyclical.
It is. And the other player, too, I like Van Ginkel. And the other player, too, who always seems to be a thorn on the Patriots side is Ipanagani as well. So that's just, like, their D-line, too. And also
Christian Wilkins is a stud.
I was about to say, too, he's an unbelievable player.
Yeah.
My only concern for them still is their offensive line health and their running game. But besides that, I feel like, and also too, like, I think they still have Durham Smythe as a tight end. He's like a pretty capable tight end as well.
He's fine. He's not scaring anybody though.
No, but he's your average NFL tight end. Like when you need him to make a catch, he'll go make a catch.
Yeah. Just don't expect him to do anything else after that. That's his role. Let him play his role for sure. For sure.
I have a couple spicy takes for you. The first one, I'm going to stay in the AFC. I know that he's in a bit of a contract dispute right now, but I think this player has what it takes to be DPOY. I think he's a little not slept on in the sense of for that category.
Contract dispute. Chris Jones. Yeah. He is. Holy cow. Yeah.
He's the engine that makes that motor run.
Yeah, he's the only reason, in my opinion, anyway, that their defense was even worth talking about last year. Because I'm so sorry. Shout out to the Kansas City Chiefs for winning the Super Bowl. I did not like their defense at all, man. I thought Trent McDuffie was overmatched a few times, especially in the playoffs. He looked bad. You had L'Jarius Sneed, who I really like, so that's cool. He's real cool. Eric Reed is down there playing. Not Eric Reed. What's his name? The younger Reed, Justin Reed. He's back there playing. Nick Bolton played really well as well. I really liked him. Leo Chenal's over there as well. But I just didn't love. I didn't think he was that good last year, but he was a rookie, so we'll see. Their secondary doesn't move me in any way. I don't know. I thought that team started up front and in the middle, like 95. You got to find him or you're in trouble. So I think I agree with your take that he can be defensive player of the year for sure.
The two most underrated players on that team are him and then Creed Humphrey at center.
Yes, he is very good. He is very, very good. Joe Thuney is also putting up like an insane run over there. Like he left. He's like, I know that Patriots fans will be like, oh yeah, Bill doesn't pay these guys. They go somewhere else. They get paid and they play poorly. Joe Thuney got paid and was just like, I'm going to just be better. And I'm like, okay, cool.
I know they had. I'm excited to see what Jawan Taylor does for that line. And I'm not for everyone to like, oh, Kansas City is like this. And I know last year they're supposed to take a step back. Their plays metrics not changed in the standings from the 2021 season to the 2022 season. And have you seen quarterback yet or no?
No, I've not. It's on my list. Haven't gotten.
It was great. I finished it like within 3 days of it coming out. I know everyone likes to bitch about like why is Marcus Mariota on it? And I'll be honest with you, I kind of like how they did the star, the middle of the pack guy, and then
roster guy for sure.
Guy, yeah. Because you can't come out and be like, hey, we're going to do Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes all immediately. You can't do that. I'm looking forward to like next year when we see photos of like Josh Allen and like Haley Steinfeld games.
Yeah, I know that a lot of people had a lot to say about Brittany Mahomes, but
the show gave me a new respect for her, and maybe
that's where I'm at.
She's one of us.
Yeah, I'm looking in the more. So I've only seen it through clips with her because everyone wanted to post her clips and be like, dunk on her. Oh, look at her. Blah, blah. I don't know. I just see someone who's like really down to like support her team and her husband, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think people are way too hard on her. It's to the point now where it's like it feels like a meme where people are just like regurgitating the same like, oh, she's terrible. Oh, she's so annoying. How did Patrick Mahomes manage to marry the most annoying woman in the world? I'm like, she's fine. Like she's probably not even the worst like quarterback wife we've seen.
No, there's two things about her I'll address that made me not like her. One was her incident at Gillette Stadium in 2019 when apparently she was saying Patriot fans are being rude towards her, but then it came out that she was the one being rude and annoying.
Yeah.
And then the other one was the champagne spraying incident
after the Bills. That was fair. If
those
people
were the
complain
two
about
that made me not like her.
Absolutely. But the But no one ever brings those up. They're always just like, oh, she's so annoying. Look at her, just always yelling at her. Like, I don't remember there was a video going around after they went to right before the Bucs Super Bowl. And everyone's like, oh,
and she was like already crowning him the GOAT.
Yeah, and I'm like, it's fine. Like, that's her husband. Like, that, I don't know. Like, if my wife was, was a superstar quarterback, I don't care how good she was or, who was before her. I'd be like, yeah, she's a GOAT. I'm sorry. Like, you support your people. I don't know. That always bugged me about football following in general, or really sports in general, where people like get upset at players or people around the players who are like, oh, this person's, they're just rooting for their person or whatever. And I'm like, that's what happens. Like, we'll see where players will root for other players, and everyone's like, well, why? That guy sucks. He's a bad dude or whatever. And it's like, yeah, but that's like his friend. So like, he's going to support him because we all support our friends, even if our friends aren't great at what they do. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I mean, even as far as like media coverage goes, right? Patriots fans, don't really love Mike Giardi, right? And he recently got a job with Boston Sports Journal with Greg Bedard, which is a shame because I like Mike Giardi, but that is a tough place for him to land. But I remember Albert Breer came out and said, "Hey, congratulations, all that," and people are like, "Oh, how could you support him like that?" I'm like, because that's his friend. Like that's the guy he works with. Like he knows him differently than we know him. And I think Brittany Mahomes falls in the same. She knows Patrick differently. She's going to support her guy. She's going to. That's literally all sports fans. I don't know why she gets treated differently for that, but I don't know.
That's just it. Like it made me think about it, and I realized too that like, look, his brother aside, like there's nothing. His brother is not featured once on the show. Like, yeah, you see him.
Yeah, that guy sucks though.
Yeah, he sucks.
Yeah, that guy sucks.
A bad person. But her, I just realized that she's one of us where she's just out there screaming her head off. She's doing like the weird, like, I got to be here. I got to be doing this during the game and all that stuff. And that she loves the game of football. And also the fact too, that this is a bit of a show spoiler, but I don't think it's a big deal. Like, unless you want me to not have to hold it.
No, go ahead.
He asked her out.
Oh.
Yeah. He was into her. So. The fact that they're high school sweethearts makes it not as bad. Like, where it's not like she's just some crazy football, like, gold digger. Like,
yeah,
the woman who thought she had it all when Russell Wilson got drafted.
Yeah, I will never forget that image. It is burned in my mind. And I believe, was she the one who cheated on Russ with Golden Tate? Was that the story? Because I remember they were rehashing that earlier this week as well. I was like, oh, God, bring me Camp.
It may have been. It was the girl where she's just like, I got my ticket, and then it's just all of a sudden like, no, you don't. He's going to date Sierra, and then
moving on.
Future's going to dunk on him.
Yeah.
My other take I have is non-NFL related. I don't know how serious this is. I think he's going to have a good career, but I'm not ready. I've seen some people doing this. I'm not ready to call Bijan Robinson a top 5 back in the NFL just yet. I've seen some people already out there saying that he's going to be that.
Yeah.
I think he's going to have the opportunity. But I think to put that much pressure on a non-quarterback rookie is just way crazy. Because it's remember Kyle Pitts coming out where everyone was like, he's going to be great. He's going to be this.
Yep, now, generational player.
I saw people calling Kyle Pitts overrated today on TikTok where I'm just like, he's not overrated, guys. Tight ends take time to develop.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I think generally speaking, though, I don't love when people want immediately place rookies among the best players. Because for the most part they're not. Like they come in and they're just fine. Or, you have a rare case where they come in and they're absolutely studded. You're like, all right, cool, I get it. But for the most part, like that's not how it's gonna be. And I feel like we do this every year. And I say we as like a football consuming public, where we just don't put enough credence in the fact that like there were 31 players taken in this draft. About 17 of them will bust. We'll just bust outright. We'll just not be good players.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, like everyone's like, no, this guy's definitely going to be the exception. And I'm like, maybe. I like Bijan Robinson. I think he's a special player. Top 5 in the league, not yet. Show me. Show me at a minimum. Show me in camp. Show me. Like, I think it's just nuts that we're not even fully in a training camp yet, and people have like these like smoldering hot takes on who's good to be good, who's not going to be not. And I'm like, we've not even seen these guys like dress up yet. You know what I mean? Like,
but that's it. I've even seen I saw a take today that Braxton Berrios is going to have a better year than Garrett Wilson. Like we're at the point where
what are we talking about?
Yeah, I'll send you the clip on Twitter.
Come
I'll send you the clip on
on.
Twitter after that. But like,
Terrible.
guys,
Come on.
also, going back to that, I'm sorry. I don't. That's like the one thing I will applaud the Jets for is trading Jamal Adams and the haul they got for it. I'm sorry, they're a better team now than they were with Adams.
Yeah, and it helps that Adams isn't a great player. I think he's a good player. He's not a great player though.
He's coming off a torn Achilles though.
Yes, well, sure. So I thought prior to the injury though, he wasn't very good.
No, he was
as a safety. I think he was a really good pass rusher. Obviously, that's not what you're expected to do as a safety, but he couldn't cover, so issue. But I think he's a fine player. He's kind of like Derwin James minus the coverage ability, which is a big minus, obviously. But yeah, that's how I feel about him.
That's just it, and that's another team too. That Seattle team is. I still think they have talent. I just don't know if I'm ready to say they're going to be as good as they were last year because I still feel like last year was a bit of a blip in the radar. Like, hey, no one phoned them. Like, they ain't pick up the phone or whatever. Gino. We ain't right.
They wrote me off, but I didn't write them back. Yeah,
that was what it is. I'm just not ready to fully write them. Like, I'm not saying I don't want to write them off, but I'm not ready to write them on. If that makes any sense, because when I look at them, I'm like.
Sense.
Because them towards the end of last season, like they weren't the best. Like we kind of found out.
Gino kind of came back to earth for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
They do look great in those throwbacks, though. Don't get me wrong.
What Seattle has going for them though is I think their defense is going to be legit. That secondary is nasty, and I know they just as of like 20 minutes ago, they just signed Uchenna Nwosu to a contract extension. I thought he was excellent last year. 3 years, I think it's $59 million. He was excellent last year, so I'm really looking forward to that. But I think their secondary is really good. They have Kobe Bryant, Devin Witherspoon, you have Tariq Woolen, and then on the back end you have Quandre Diggs and Jamal Adams, who I don't really love. But I think that's like a good group you can just bring out there and feel okay with it. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do, but it will depend on Gino because when he came back to earth last year, he wasn't making any of the mistakes he made when he was a Jet, but he was not making any of like the killer plays he made earlier in the year. Like the throw that will always stick in my mind from last year with Gino was that the deep post touchdown against the Saints. That ball legitimately could not have been thrown better. So I was like, cool. But we'll see if he's somewhere in the middle, they'll probably be a pretty good team.
Yeah, and then the running game is a big question too. I was like, if I was off for a second, I was just trying to find the Uchenna Nwosu tweet because as soon as you brought him up, he's going to be good. What Seattle is going to be, I know you're not a big gambler. They're going to be winning a lot of like 17 to 14 football games.
Yeah,
their defense is going to be keeping them in it, or like how last year where it's like, hey, if they give up X amount of points, their offense won't have enough to keep them in the game. Like I could see them having a very similar season what the 22 Patriots did, minus the stupid mistakes, obviously. And then with that division, I still think that this year, if the Rams don't do anything, I think next year is the blow it up year. I think they're a team where it can go south very quickly. But then again, I'm not ready to write them off, but at the same time too, I think if they don't go well, I think that's when you have the retirements, quote unquote, coming from like Stafford, which I want to send his best to his wife. I don't know if you saw that, but
I did see that. She's another figure who gets a lot of hate. But then you see, stuff like that, and you're just like, I hope no one's being unchill about this. And they were being unchill about it in the comments, but I've learned not to read the comments at this point because people are just nasty.
People are assholes. Let's just put it that way.
Yep.
And then that's like, I look at them and I'm like that because like I still say this. There's only two teams in the AFC that I trust right now, and that's Philly and that's San Fran. For everyone else saying like, oh, like this. Like, I want to see what the Giants can do. Like, I'm not ready to fully give them their kudos yet because I think, if anything, there's more pressure on Jones now that he's making all his money.
Yeah, for sure.
And then,
where do you land on
Dallas?
Dallas. That's what I was going to ask. Where do you land on Dallas? I kind of buy Dallas. I buy it. I'm like, I don't know. I think they got it.
I will buy them to make off and be a wild card. I'm not buying them to go to the Bowl.
No. You're right. Allow me to clarify. I buy them getting into the playoffs and winning a game or two, but I don't see them in the Super Bowl either.
10 or 11-6, I think they're ceiling.
Sure. I like I said, I think that division is nice and competitive. I think the Cowboys can beat the Eagles can beat the Giants can beat the Commanders, and the Commanders can beat themselves. So it's one of those divisions where everyone's like kind of like it'll be competitive, and I think that's always good for a division. Agree.
Right now, I think it's going to be the same. And then that's the most division teams that one I think is my dark horse pick. Honestly, is Atlanta. Like I think it's one of those teams where I'm only saying that because it's that one. Okay. There's always those teams where it's like they're playing with house money. There's nothing to lose.
Sure. I don't disagree because I don't think anything of that division. Like I think if all of the teams ended up like 7-10, that wouldn't surprise me at all. Because like I don't know, they're all like the same team, just like with a different glaring weakness.
I also don't think the Buccaneers are going to be as bad as everyone thinks.
Agreed.
I do think that. So I wouldn't be shocked to see Todd Bowles getting fired at the end of the year either.
Sure, I buy that as well. But I think they'll win more games than we expect.
Yeah, and then with the Saints, I think the Saints are kind of like that Seahawk where it's like their defense is still good enough to keep them around. Like,
yeah,
I still think Demario Davis is one of the most underappreciated linebackers.
He's so good, and age doesn't even matter. So I'm like, cool. Keep
him and Cam Jordan.
Yeah, and Cam Jordan. Yeah, I think they need to get him some help though. I mean, man, he is. Whew, I know they drafted what's his name that Peyton kid a few years ago, and he's
Peyton Turner and Brian Brees.
Yeah. Peyton Turner hasn't done a thing, and I remember everyone being really excited about that. I think Brian Brees is going to be good. He gives you a nice interior rush there, so that'll be cool. But just I need something. I remember Marcus Davenport was supposed to be the other side of that, and
now he's in Atlanta. I think
he was. I don't know where he is now, but he was underwhelming. I think he might be with the for whatever reason Minnesota's coming to mind.
Yeah, he's with my bad. He's with Minnesota. It's who's the guy's name? He's Canadian.
David
Onyemata.
Yeah,
Onyemata's with Atlanta.
And he's a good player. So I think Atlanta got himself something nice. I think more than anything, I just don't buy Derek Carr. We've spoken enough times about enough things that that I just do not believe in Derek Carr in any way. So yeah, so that's why I can't see myself thinking the Saints are going to do something. I don't see it.
I believe in them being a competitive football team. I believe in them being, competitive. I also think this too. I think for what Derek Carr can be, I think we're going to see a really strong and Chris Olave really emerge himself this year as a top receiver in the league.
I think there's a chance you are right. I think you were so right on that. I think Olave is going to be so good. I think he was already so good. I think he was stuck on a crap team, so not enough people took notice. And I know that he came second in, Offensive Rookie of the Year. So like he's obviously getting some note. But I feel like general football discourse does not include him enough. He was really good last year.
Yeah, because you have him. I think Michael Thomas has a renaissance because I love everyone thinks Michael Thomas just fell off this cliff and that 2019 was a one-off season when he was doing this in 2017 and 2018 as well, where he was a top receiver. It's just 2019 he blew it all out of the water, so everyone expected him to have that. And then he got a season we haven't seen.
He got hurt for 2 years, so that's tough to come back from.
I think there's that, and I also think too there were some issues there with Sean Payton.
For sure, yeah. And then him fighting with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson or CJ Gardner-Johnson or whatever. Which shout out to CJ Gardner-Johnson for not tearing his ACL. I remember this morning everyone was like, "Oh no," and I was like, "Ee." And then it turned out, he's probably gonna be fine. So you're like, "Cool."
There was one account where it was like prayers for CJ Gardner-Johnson, and all of a sudden it was like, "Good news, it's not totally torn." And I'm just like, "Were you like hoping this guy tore his ACL?" I'm like, "Okay, what?" I know we had the Naheem Hines injury today, which that's something else on a jet ski, just completely.
Yeah,
I'm glad he's okay, apart from shredding his knee.
For sure.
But that's an interesting one too. But also too, I still think Buffalo's running. We'll see what Damian Harris does there, but I'm not. That's the one thing I still think. I think New England and New York have the better running rooms in the AFC.
Agree.
But with the NFC South, the one team I just don't want to buy on because I did it 2 years ago and I felt like a fool was Carolina. I just think that.
Really? I'd buy Carolina sooner than I'd buy Atlanta. I like their coaching situation a little better than
I do like their defense. Atlanta.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think the Panthers might be my pick to win that division. Right? Obviously you have Bryce Young. He is Bryce Young, right? I think he's going to be pretty good. But again, show me it. Then they have John Mingo. You paired him with a nice rookie receiver.
Terrace Marshall, you guys should get off the pot.
Okay, he needs to be traded to New England. It's time. He's not doing a thing over there. Just send him up north.
Who do you want more, him or KJ Osborne?
Oh, no, give me KJ Osborne. I'm sorry. But if it's, give me KJ Osborne, but if he's unavailable, send me Terrace Mitchell.
Exactly. But I think Carolina, though, I just think, like, J.C. Horn's good. Brian Burns, I think, is an elite defensive edge in this league.
Yes, he is.
Yeah. I think they'll be good. I just think it's like give them time. I think it's like Carolina's that team. I think Carolina this year can be what Detroit was last year, where they're going to surprise people, still miss the playoffs, but next year is that year where everyone's looking at them like, hey, they're going to make some noise. They're like the Bryce Young second-year leap and everything like that. I can see that happening.
So you think they're like the Bengals of 2020?
Yes. I still think the Bengals would have been better if Burrow didn't tear his ACL.
Yeah. But that team, like, even before the ACL tear, I feel like that team was like a year away. I'm like, oh, you can kind of see what they're getting at, but like, they need like one more offseason to kind of like assemble this team, and then they're going to be nasty. And then they did.
They went and got Jamar Chase, which is a move I questioned at the time. So I'm like, they need offensive.
Yeah, I was like, you have to take Panay. You have to take Panay. And egg on my face. I was like, oh, you made the right decision.
Exactly. And then they went and got Jamar Chase, and now they have the best three-headed monster at receiver in the league.
One of those guys needs to be traded to New England as well. Tyler Boyd, send him.
T. Higgins and free agency. Come over, T. What was the other thing I was going to say? That was a take. I completely brain farted on it. But there's so much to talk about. There's so much to focus on. Like and then the AFC South. I literally look at the division where I'm like, Jacksonville's going to be the team that they win it, and then they don't do anything else. Like they're probably like.
I actually think that Jacksonville's going to have a harder time winning it than just the general consensus. I think. I don't like Tennessee's roster, but I think Tennessee is coached so well that they're going to be involved in the division all the way to the end.
They're going to surprise some people and win a couple games that no one had anticipated.
Yeah, their roster's a little top heavy right now. I think there are like three positions where you're like, oh, they're going to be really good unless there's an injury. Because if there's even one injury, like the whole thing falls apart. Like their pass rush right now, Harold Landry, and that's
Jeffrey
it,
Simmons.
Right, yeah, but right. As far as Jeffrey Simmons is your interior rusher, and they also have Tyre Tart on the interior. So like, okay, cool, you can kind of do something there. But I'm talking about edge rushers. You have Harold Landry, and then Rashad Weaver's your backup. So like, that's not gonna be enough. You know what I mean? Same thing with their cornerback situation. I like Christian Fulton a lot. I think he has the potential to be a Pro Bowl cornerback, like to be kind of a player there. I was like, oh, he's one of the best corners in the league. I think he has that potential. I think Caleb Farley also has that potential. He just never plays. He just doesn't suit up.
Games.
Yeah, he just doesn't suit up. So you're like, all right, like he could be pretty good, but guy never really plays. I feel that way about their O-line where, but I think that's across the league where everyone's like an O-line injury away from like starting me at left guard or something. So
call me crazy. I'm not saying they're going to be I still think 11 is but I think that is going to win a few games.
Yeah.
I think that's enough attention.
Yeah, I don't know. The only thing I question with Houston is that they're just not a terribly talented team. I think they'll win more games. But when you look at like all of like, I think they're gonna have to win games where they're better than the sum of their parts. Because you look at like the roster like by list, and you're just like, I don't really see it. But I think Derek Stingley's going to be a really good player. I think he only played 9 games last year, and as a result, people aren't talking enough about him being a good player. I think he's a very good cornerback.
I meant more with my draft stock comment. I think this year people will see that, like, hey, he's as good of a player as advertised.
Yeah, then you have Roy Lopez there, interior D lineman. I think he's going to be a really good player for them as well. Jalen Petrie in the secondary. Yeah, I don't know. I think they can also surprise some people. I just don't know that they're ready yet.
No. They're still going to be a top 5 pick in the draft. They also
for
have
sure. Yep.
Yeah, they're still going to be a top 5 pick. Don't get me wrong, but I still think, hey, I can see them like either being super competitive because remember last year they took Kansas City to overtime.
Yeah.
The same weekend as the robberies happened with the Wolf, but that's not here nor there.
Yeah, it's I don't know. That is really interesting. I think when we look back on a lot of the previous season, I feel like we all do this thing where we kind of look at like the final records and not enough at what actually happened in the games, because I think it's easy to say like, oh yeah, Houston's going to be terrible because they were terrible this year, and that may be very well be true, but they were in a number of games last year that they had no business being in. So I think the same can be same can apply for this year. Same thing with Tennessee, who only won 8 games, and everyone's like, oh yeah, they're not going to win the division, or they can't win the division, or whatever. And I'm like, I don't know, they were in it. They were Josh Dobbs' missed throw from winning that division. So I don't know. Football's a weird sport like that.
The one other thing I'll say with them, sorry, I have a eyelash caught in my eye. The one other thing I will say with them is I don't think Dalton Schultz will be as good as what he was with the Dallas Cowboys.
Agreed.
I think he'll go there, and then next year I think maybe he's just looking for a prove-it deal, but I think he went to the wrong team to get a prove-it deal.
Yeah, agree. And I don't think they're going to do enough for him to prove it.
So, and then I remember the thing I was going to ask you before. So there's 2 things that I've been sitting on. One is a Patriots thing. The other is a draft thing from a few years ago.
Okay.
Because I've seen this. So the 2017 draft, we all know who was taken in that draft.
Yep.
My question for you is, if you go back to that draft, if you're running the Cleveland Browns, let's just say, do you take Mahomes number 1, knowing what you know, or do you still take Myles Garrett?
I take Mahomes. Pass rushers are a little easier to find than quarterbacks. I can't think of any scenario where I'm like, yeah, I'm going to willingly pass up on my quarterback for a team that doesn't have a quarterback, right? If I'm not passing on quarterbacks to start Deshaun Kaiser. I'm not doing it. So give me the quarterback 8 out of 8 times. I'm sorry.
I go Myles Garrett. I know this is going to be controversial, but I just think that I don't think you get the same Mahomes as we do in Kansas City. I think he'll be good. It's just, he's not walking into a well-run organization. He's not walking into – nothing against Cleveland at the time. Look, that was the 0-17 year for obvious reasons. It's just I think with that situation, Myles Garrett benefited the Browns in the long run. But if you're looking at it from like, hey – what the Browns are this year, like if you say he's the 23 Browns with Patrick Mahomes, that's a hell of a game.
Yeah.
Nick Chubb.
I can understand it. I'm taking the quarterback though. I'll roll the dice on the quarterback and make it happen. Because then you don't have to end up trading for Deshaun Watson. So
yeah, that's the other thing too. And then the other one before we go is Patriots related, obviously, and I'm going to make a statement right now, and I want to follow it up with an explanation. I think that all that stuff about Kraft putting Bill on a hot seat is BS. I think Bill is here until Bill wants to be here. Yeah. And the other thing I will say with that as well is, for anyone also the whole take of did Bill make Tom or did Tom make Bill? They both made each other. And if you want a pure example of this, those first 3 Super Bowls were all Belichick and all defense.
Correct.
Brady had his part, but the Bills' defenses are all Hall of Fame caliber players on there.
Yep.
But you know what I mean. There's like names that come to mind where right away you're like, great player.
Yeah, for sure. I think the whole Bill versus Brady thing is just stuff that people talk about because they have nothing better to talk about. I don't think it even matters, right? Because it's impossible to know. It's just something that the radio, obviously it's good to talk about on the radio and it's good to talk about on Twitter because you'll get the engagements up. But in truth, it doesn't matter because there's no way to divorce the two, right? There's no way we can extrapolate what, 2007 looks like if it's just Brady or if it's just Bill or whatever the case is. And I know people like to say, but Tom went out there and won a Super Bowl without Bill. And it's like, okay, like what does that mean? Like, does that mean like he would have won all those Super Bowls without Bill before? No, obviously you can't just make that assumption. There's no way to know. It's just something to talk about.
Yeah, and like even what was I going to say? What was it? I think I was looking at. God damn, I lost train of thought again. Just the whole thing. I think it's just people trying to make conversation and just trying to make it something that it's not. You're adding smoke to a non-existent fire.
Yep.
But even when you look at the whole Bill and Kraft situation, yeah. Do I think Kraft wants to win? Yeah.
For sure.
Are they stuck in the past? I don't know. Oh, and here's the other thing too. 2007, you would have won, but said cornerback has since lost his fucking mind. So it's another story for another day.
The cornerback who's better than Darrelle Revis. Come on, man. This is the hill you want to die on, friend? Holy shit.
No.
Goodness
One of my
gracious.
friends literally came out and he was just like, I'm sorry, but Asante Samuel has lost his fucking mind.
Absolutely. And your friend was right. He did absolutely lose his fucking mind. Because what?
Yeah. Oh, what's the worst one right now? Him or the Le'Veon Bell Bugs Life shit?
What? I mean, I just don't pay enough attention to Le'Veon Bell. I know that I know that they were on his ass. Everyone was like blaming him. Oh, if he didn't sit out and then suck, then the running back market would have been better. But if that were the case, he wouldn't have had to sit out in the first place. And the fact that he had to sit out kind of, I think, proves his point. Like, he only sat out because they weren't willing to pay him. And what did we see?
Yeah, and also too, him and his agent got more money out of the Jets than they should have. So that's the other thing more than anything. It's like, don't look at the whole blame Antonio. Not blame. Well, you can blame Antonio Brown for a lot of things.
Always blame him for everything.
Yeah, blame him for everything. Shout out the Albany Empire. But with Le'Veon Bell, I think it was just, look, him and his agent swindled the Jets to give him $15 million a year when he didn't deserve $15 million a year.
Yeah.
And then with the running back thing, I think it'll all work itself out. I think it's just eventually when you have three really good running backs, especially two pretty much top five running backs not reporting to camp, that's where stuff gets dicey. Because, look, I know, Raiders, I mean, if Jacobs doesn't show up, they're screwed. And then if the Giants do have Eric Gay, but Eric Gay's not going to be Saquon Barkley. So we'll wait and see what happens.
Yeah. They'll be fine.
We'll see the whole situation is going to work itself out.
For sure. Yeah.
Also, I have one more question for you that's non-podcast related before we go.
Sure.
Actually, it is podcast related. Remember last year we did the same thing every year, monthly recaps of the Patriots?
Yeah.
I am more than welcome to having you back on doing that. So where we come
Let's
on,
do it.
Recap the month.
Let's
do
it.
I want to have many segments. As we know, there's the famous Danny Dimes in Primetime one, which me and my friend started as a goof, but now we podcast during every Daniel Jones Primetime game. And then the other one that I've come to love is Talking Patriots with the gentleman to my left today. Usually it's to my right, but with the gentleman to my left, who's become a great friend of the show, McGarvin. Shout out as always. It was great to get to talk to you once again. We sped through the technical difficulties, but it was all worth it in the end. Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap up today?
I've got nothing except that Tyquan Thornton is going to be great this year. That is my hot take. He's going to have himself a nice little season, 800 yards receiving, 6 touchdowns. Boom. Hot take.
Ooh, I like it. I like it a lot. Well, anyway, guys, that has been it. Join us next time on YWC Football Talk as we get ready as fantasy football guru Andy McNamara is back to join us. And in just next weekend, folks, we'll be in Detroit, Michigan for WWE SummerSlam, so expect a lot of podcast content coming out of there. The NFL train is back. The NFL train is going to get rolling very soon. It was great to talk to McGarvin before. The train gets rolling. It does not stop. Have a good night, everybody.